Howdy, Earthlings. You may or you may not have wondered what's the thing about why we have snow in some places around the equator. Like, for example, the Himalayas, Nepal. Let's put on the grid lines in order to be accurate about the equator and stuff like this. Where do we have the grid lines? Equator. Generally, it is known that it is very hot at the equator. Now let's see, do we have any snowy tops around the equator? Maybe not exactly at the equator. Maybe somewhere in Ecuador? Yes, there is. Check it out. Cayambe. And here at the lower right corner, maybe like if you follow my mouse, for those who know how to use Google, here you can see cursor elevation relative to sea level. So wherever your cursor goes, this number here will tell you the height above sea level. And we are about 5,300 meters above sea level, almost exactly at the equator, where it is supposed to be rather hot. Now let's put off the grid lines because this is slowing the whole thing down and it looks awful. Yeah, some may say it's due to the height of the mountain. Let's see where we have Kilimanjaro. It might be somewhere here. I don't know exactly. Kilimanjaro? Maybe it's more south. Maybe it's this one, maybe not. Mount Kenya. No, it wasn't the Kilimanjaro, but we found another mountain, rather south, where it's supposed to be hot and we have snow. Yes, 4,800 meters. Yeah, it's cold because mountains are so high. All right. Yeah, makes sense. Everybody knows. Here's the same thing. The Alps in Europe, there are many snow-topped mountains. The cursor is around 3,400 meters. Here we have Mont Blanc, the highest peak of the Alps. It's almost 4,000 meters. So it isn't that high compared to many other mountains, because there are many, many other mountains that are very high. So we have to assume in order to have snow-topped mountains, they have to have a certain height. But if we go north, let's just pick out those islands. And again, the cursor is showing the approximate height of where, or the number shows the approximate height of where the cursor is. Now we are at 384 meters above sea level. 266. And we have snow. 200 meters. Snow-topped mountains. Yeah, some may say it's due to their latitude because they are so much north. That's why they are frozen. That's why it's so cold. 600 meters. There's ice and snow. So, in other words, it's not so much maybe about the height of where we are, 600 meters, and there seems to be a lot of snow and ice. Very interesting pattern here. Something seems to melt and flow downhill. Here's also something melting maybe. 600 meters approximately. So there seems to be a correlation between the height of a place. Let's check out the Andes still. There seems to be a correlation about the height of some places, 4,000 meters, and also the geographic location, like the poles. In order to have temperatures that are suitable for ice and snow to occur. And if we look at some weather maps, here we have anywhere, here we have clouds that are red, because the redder they are, the colder they are, minus 60 degrees. Minus 69. Minus 71. And we are almost at the equator. So there seems to be something about the height, apparently. We are talking about the tropopause, is where we are. The tropopause is the atmospheric boundary that demarcates the lowest two layers. We are talking about the pause, which is the double layer, but anyway, the lowest two layers of the atmosphere of Earth, the troposphere and stratosphere, which occurs approximately 17 kilometers above the equatorial regions. 17 kilometers. And approximately 9 kilometers above the polar regions. How is that so small, this picture? Yeah, we just have to deal with that. It didn't get any bigger. Why is my zoom tool not working? Is it this one? Yeah. Now we can see it a bit better. So we are at the equator. We have 17 kilometers. And if we go to the pole, we only have 9. So there is a difference of 8 kilometers in height of our troposphere, where we are. From the pole to the equator. And as we just saw, it needs for mountains, at least at the equator, they need to have a certain height in order to be cold enough for the ice and snow to stay there all around the year. And if you go to the pole, apparently the cold air is much closer to the surface. That's why our polar areas of Earth are frozen most of the time. And if you think about high pressure cells and low pressure cells, a low pressure cell means probably or quite likely that the tropospheric boundary, the tropopause, the double layer, comes down towards the ground. It makes a trough. So the cold air is coming closer to the surface. Having a high pressure system, it makes a bulge upwards. So there's much more space for warmer air. It is generally taught in school and taught in meteorological sciences that weather patterns, let's give this a second to load if it does. Yes, it does. Maybe we can observe something like this here. I didn't really plan this. No, let's just stay here. Over the Pacific. It is generally assumed that here somewhere we have the atmosphere, the equator, and it's the Coriolis effect that makes all these weather patterns. And actually here is something very interesting going on because we are approximately at the equator. And there seems to be some kind of a gap and there seems to be something going southwards. Now let's just see it. Do we have something? Yeah, there seems to be some kind of a pattern going on there. Here we have the South Atlantic magnetic anomaly. Very interesting, not too many clouds in this area. But anyway, generally, it is assumed that the Coriolis force in classical mechanics, an inertial force described by the 19th century French engineer Gustave Gaspard Coriolis in 1835, the Coriolis showed that if the ordinary Newtonian laws of motion of bodies are to be used in a rotating frame of reference, an inertial force acting to the right of the direction of body motion for counterclockwise rotation of the reference frame or to the left for clockwise rotation must be included in the equation of motion. The effect of the Coriolis force is an apparent deflection of the path of an object that moves within a rotating coordinate system. The object does not actually deviate from its path, but appears to do so because of the motion of the coordinate system. Yeah, there's like all kinds of reading you can find on the internet. And I just wanted to show you that I am somewhat aware of this. And I also want to talk about, let's just use Britannica once again, troposphere. The lowest portion of the atmosphere is the troposphere, a layer where temperature generally decreases with height. This layer contains most of Earth's clouds and is the location where weather primarily occurs. And there are several pictures, you can check them out, but I just want to point out one thing here. Here we have the temperature, 0, plus 30, minus 100. And here we have the attitude. Ozone layer is in the stratosphere somewhere here. And here we have the pauses, the tropopause, stratopause, mesopause. Yeah, these are the double layers. But they don't want to call them double layers. They call them pauses. But anyway, as you can observe here in this totally very simplified picture, there are several layers. And here we are, Mount Everest, 8.85 kilometers, seems to be around here, just below the boundary of the tropopause. Percentages at selected altitudes are percentages of sea level pressure. So if you are at the Mount Everest, and are watching my video, put a comment down below, I would be very surprised. But anyway, 28% of the air pressure, what you experience at sea level. So here we have this pressure curve. And then it just somehow it decreases basically significantly because there are many zeros. But the line is just straight. But what you don't see here in this graph is the temperature. Maybe, I don't know. Here's just the altitude, and here's the altitude in kilometers, and here we have the miles, and the temperature is down here. So I think on Mount Everest we have somewhat 30 degrees minus, approximately. Yeah, because it's so high. And if you go higher up into the stratosphere, and all of a sudden the temperature increases, then it decreases. And if we go up here, it increases. And we are here at plus 80 Fahrenheit, plus 30 degrees Celsius. But if we have auroras, they are some 2,000 or 3,000 degrees hot. So there is this arrow goes way up to this side according to the temperature. And now we are still maybe thinking about the Coriolis effect and about the temperature and height correlate on different things. Do we have any graph here about the Coriolis effect? Maybe not. No, we don't. Should we just have a quick look at this video? Maybe it works. I don't know. 1 minute. Yeah, this is what they are trying to explain you about the Coriolis effect. And this seems to be a toilet. Yeah, that's very surprising.
The logic of the straight flash is correct. The Coriolis effect is the appearance of a force because of the rotation of the Earth. Take one of those carousel thingies on tables in Chinese restaurants.
No. But I think that's a rather good description for the general explanation of the Coriolis effect, because you can flush it down the toilet. In my opinion, it's total BS. Because if we go, for example, to the plasma universe and read a little bit about Birken currents, a Birken current usually refers to the electric currents in a planet's ionosphere that follows magnetic field lines, i.e. field-aligned currents, and sometimes used to describe any field-aligned electric current in a space plasma. They are caused by the movement of a plasma perpendicular to a magnetic field. Birken currents often show filamentary or twisted rope-like magnetic structure. They are also known as field-aligned currents, magnetic ropes, and magnetic cables. Originally, Birken currents referred to electric currents that contribute to the aurora caused by the interaction of plasma in the solar wind with the Earth's magnetosphere. The current flows earthwards down the morning side of the Earth's ionosphere around the polar regions and spacewards up the evening side of the ionosphere. So they go down and they go up. Maybe I just showed it the wrong way, but anyway, these Birken currents are now sometimes called auroral electrojets. Yeah, because people sometimes try to give things different names for different reasons, like the tropopause, or generally the pauses in the atmosphere that are double layers. The currents were predicted in 1903 by Norwegian explorer and physicist Christian Bertrand, who undertook expeditions into the Arctic Circle to study the aurora. So there is a lot more reading for you to do if you never have heard of this topic. And here is a picture of an experiment Christian Bertrand made. Empirical science, not just some mathematical theorem written on some blackboard somewhere. No, there is very much electricity included into this experiment. And he observed what was going on. If you are focused on mathematics, you cannot really observe anything. We have to talk about the characteristics for the occurrence of a high current C-pinch aurora as recorded in antiquity by Anthony L. Peratt. I will put links to all my sources down below, of course, in order for you to check and double check and read for yourself and make up your own mind, build up your own opinion. I'm not trying to convince any one of you. I'm not trying to make you believe what I tell you. I'm just trying to explain what I think and why I came to think how I think today. Because we are learning all the time. So now I won't make a whole read through. Now let's zoom out a little bit. But Birken currents artist's depiction of Birken currents flowing into and out of Earth's atmosphere at high latitude. These currents, once the subject of intense debate, are routinely measured today's satellites and have total magnitudes of millions of amperes, mega amperes. A lot of electricity. Here, once again, the auroral oval. View of the Earth's aurora obtained by UV light by the Viking satellite. The auroral emissions completely encircle the geomagnetic pole, located approximately in the center, and are brightest near midnight, located in the lower right corner. Here, the diameter of this auroral ring is about 5,000 kilometers. The solar wind plasmas filter through Earth's magnetosphere responsible for the aurora of Earth. Then we have also another depiction of an intense auroral funnel. The figures show both downflowing and upflowing Perkin currents contained with two concentric sheets. Left oblique upward view, right side view. Barely discernible at the lower center are the C-pinch instabilities. And I assume here at the top, this is a depiction, this is not a real observation, but here we have probably the polar cusps somewhere up here. But this is a laboratory experiment. I will put a link below to this paper. If you haven't ever seen this paper, I highly recommend you to take your time and read this. We will talk, or the main reason why I took forth this paper is the Squatterman. This figure here, especially the two dots, are very important. And they are seen or found all over the world, left to right, top to bottom. Northern Arizona, Armenia, Guyana, New Mexico, Spain, Tucson, Arizona, Tyrolean Alps, Italy, United Arab Emirates, and Venezuela, and many, many other places. But we still have to go down a bit because there is one, or actually few pictures that I figured out to use in something about Earth's atmosphere, our weather, and stuff like this. We might just go here with this. Left configuration and cross-sectional views of the intense current discharge. This shape, the column in the center, this center part, which are the dots of these figures. Here's a similar picture. This shape is very important. Many or some are calling this a Squatterman. That's the experiment. Here's a conceptual depiction of the thing. And a bright topology outline of the whole thing again. And here are petroglyphs found all over the world. Because I still think this whole Coriolis force thing is, yeah, it should maybe belong here into this toilet. Because if we go here to ethereal matters or look at the Perkin current simulator, at first glance this looks just as like a huge mess. But here you actually can turn it around. And if we look inside this, you can observe that there is counter-rotating things going on. The green one is going in this direction, and if you go a little bit to the outer side, it goes to the other direction. And not just turn it around, and here you have a few things you can adjust of what you're looking at. Now you can probably see better of what we are talking about. This seems to go inside this tube, and then we have a slight rotation into this direction, even more, and then it starts to turn around, and here, this area, it goes into the opposite direction of what the center is going. And here we are seeing the counter-rotating nature of the Burkett current. And if we go to the other side, it's apparently or obviously the opposite. So that's a Burkett current, a visual simulation of the Burkett current. And it is counter-rotating. And I think Burkett current goes through Earth. It doesn't just stop somewhere at the ionosphere. Burkett current goes through Earth and it goes through the Sun. It goes to every planet of our solar system. This is how we are mostly connected with the Sun. And I also think this Burkett current is powering the plasma at the center of Earth. We can go over to space weather from the GFS Potsdam in Germany. Data assimilative real-time forecast of radiation belts. Yeah, there's like radiation belts around Earth. In a way, in a similar fashion, in a way, as the rings of Saturn. Earth has, in a way, something almost similar. For some reason, this just doesn't work at the moment. But anyway, here is Earth, and here is the radiation belt around Earth. Yeah, that's a pity why this doesn't work. Why? Let's try again. Yeah, now it seems to load. And the redder it is, the more energy we have. So obviously you can see they are charging and discharging all the time. And here you can see the KP index. Many other real-time data. I'm not too sure of what exactly we are looking at, mega electron volts and stuff like this. But anyway, my basic point is Earth has something like this. The radiation belts, and here we probably have the magnetosphere around the whole thing. So, some time ago, Earth grew an extra never before seen radiation belt after last year's supercharged solar storm, and it's probably still there. That's from this year, published February 11th, 2025. Data collected from a once defunct NASA satellite show that Earth grew 2 extra radiation belts following a supercharged geomagnetic storm in May 2024, including a never-before-seen structure that is likely still there today, researchers say. Earth is permanently surrounded by rings of radiation known as the Van Allen belts. Multicolor, yeah, these are the belts. The newly identified temporary bands, purple, In between the Van Allen belts, here are the Van Allen belts, and the purple was the one thing that just appeared. The new pair of extra radiation belts. I will put a link below to this as well. You can go check it out, and if you are very curious, you can read the whole paper somewhere. There must be a link. Generally, they post the link to the original paper because this is just some life science journal stuff. So, let's go quickly back to our Birkeland current simulator. And as I try to explain my point of view, that basically, like here we have the counter-rotating features. This goes this direction, this goes the other direction. And it should be vertical, basically. Does this work? Can we do it like this? Yeah, check it out. So, here, my mouse, I'm not able to draw anything here. But here would be Earth. Earth would be here, and we are engulfed within this Birkeland current. And this Birkeland current that engulfs Earth, that's the thing that creates much of our weather patterns. Yeah, do you think this sounds crazy? Let's go over to null score. And we are watching at wind, surface wind. Okay. And you can see this, yeah, there's not too much going on in a way. Not real patterns visible. But now let's just go up in height, step by step. Now we are, maybe that's about 1,500 meters above sea level. We get a bit more action, and as we go up, the action increases. Now let's just stop here for a bit. We are watching at the North Pole. The equator, yeah, we can see something is going on. It just jumped from one level to another. And there is much more going on at the South Pole, and you can observe this general flow direction or spin direction. Yeah, here it's the same. I haven't really watched this now. Going still a bit further up, the general flow direction is still visible, but we might have to or want to focus more here on this area, the equator. So we have still 2 layers left to go. That's the equator. Let's just keep it like this. Here's India, if you are interested into what we are looking at. We are looking at Earth. So now let's have a look at this, how it looks. The flow pattern of the wind is from left to right on both hemispheres. And there's not too much going on at the equator. Now let's go still one step up. And all of a sudden, we have something going on here at the equator. And much more going on at the South Pole. And not so much going on at the North Pole. But the point is still the flow direction is from left to right, from west to east. Now let's go still one up. check it out. The flow direction of the wind around the equator is in the total opposite direction, from east to west. West to east, east to west. Our Barton current. The counter-rotating features. So it depends of where you are in the Barton current. Your spinning direction might be the complete opposite as we have here on Earth. For example, very easily visible at the equator. Going one step down here, it goes from west to east. Going one step up, it goes from east to west. So this is what I think is going on on Earth. And here we probably can observe some kind of double layering going on both hemispheres. And if you could now imagine or depict in your mind this Barton current, here would be Earth somewhere, and it just would come down here. And in order for you to make this whole thing easier, I figured to make this little overlay thing. And this is from the Anthony Perrat or Thunderbolt project. It's the same thing, the Squatterman with dots under his arms. I am not able to get rid of this, but anyway. Now let's just have a look-see. Here is a sketchy screenshot of the Barton current simulator we just watched. Here's Earth. We have the radiation belts and the Barton current on the other side. So we can, in a way, say Squatterman isn't dead. Squatterman is still alive and doing well. It's just maybe a bit hard to see for most of us. And also this little overlay thing could explain much about weather, Coriolis effect, and other things they try to believe and try to prove using a toilet. Yeah, I don't know. Let's just watch this again. The Squatterman, the radiation belts of Earth, the Barton current, and how it does relate to weather, and probably many other things. Yeah, actually, now I wanted to still show you one thing. It is also about electricity. And for this, we have to go over quickly to spaceweather.com. I guess that's already a very long video. But I don't care. That's from today. The electric forest. Trees respond to a solar eclipse. Yeah, it's just an eclipse. Solar eclipses aren't just for Homo sapiens. Researchers have long known that birds and insects and many other mammals pay attention when the moon slides in front of the sun. Now we can add trees to the list. A paper just published in the journal Royal Society Open Science reports the extraordinary reaction of an Italian mountain forest to a partial eclipse on October 25, 2022. Electrical signals inside spruce trees began to pulse in unison, with all the trees seeming to anticipate the eclipse before it happened. So, did the ants know already? Did they remember? Did they count the years or days or months from the last one? This is unconventional research and it may challenge what some readers think about trees. Yeah, maybe it challenges some readers what they think about many other things too. Hopefully it does so. However, it is serious work conducted by experts in plant communication and published in a peer-reviewed journal of the Royal Society. Yeah, maybe one day they figure out that the king hasn't any clothes, but that's another story. The paper reports how scientists led by Alessandro Chiolerio of the Italian Institute of Technology and Monica Gagliano of Southern Cross University attached electrodes to 3 Norway spruce trees and 5 tree stumps. That was very hard to read. Their device is like an EKG for trees. Yeah, Langmuir probes. Maybe they should put some EKGs around volcanoes and they will figure out stuff they have never seen before. The trees were different ages, ranging from 20 to 70 years old, allowing the team to compare how age might influence bioelectric responsiveness to the eclipse. As the eclipse approached, electrical signals from different trees began to align. Their waveforms became more similar in shape and timing. This synchronization peaked during the eclipse and gradually diminished afterward. The older trees started showing electrical changes earlier, hours before the eclipse began, while the youngest trees responded later and more weakly. The tree stumps also exhibited a bioelectrical response, albeit less pronounced than in the standing trees. Yeah, Earth is alive. The researchers interpreted this as a coordinated, organism-like response to a large-scale environmental effect, possibly involving communication or shared signaling pathways. Yeah, remember the saying, something came to your mind? Yeah, this might imply that the information has been somewhere else earlier. Otherwise, it couldn't have come to you. But anyway, the idea that trees may talk to one another is key to the burgeoning field of plant communication. A growing body of research, especially since the 1990s, suggests that trees form symbiotic relationships with fungi, creating vast underground networks called the Wood Wide Web. Through these networks, trees exchange nutrients, water, and even chemical signals. Yeah, like people are doing the same thing. If you get a bad message, your body reacts and you might experience a discharge event, let's say by crying. And tears are made of different things depending on the reason for why you're crying. Physical pain, sorrow, grief, anger, happiness. The tears are made of different things every time. They also reportedly recognize their own young and give preferential treatment to kin. Even tree stumps may retain connections to this network. Basically, we are watching the famous Wood Wide Web in action, says Gagliano. Also, the researchers successfully detected electrical activity in trees. They have no idea what was being said, if anything. Perhaps it was simply a basic response to changes in temperature or light levels. About 1/3 of the sun was covered during the eclipse. Yeah, but it wasn't so before the eclipse when some of the trees already did their thing. The researchers don't yet speak the language of arboreal electricity, so they can't decipher what they overheard. Repeating the experiment in different forests during more eclipses may be revealing. Stay tuned for updates from the forest. Now let me show you still one thing.